Mike Bell. How are you?
Hey,
Oh,
what's up, Scott?
hey, how many of these do you say you've done this year? Like 30 or 40?
As a guest, yes, probably. No, probably like about 35, I think, for the last 2 years.
That's a lot.
I know.
Yeah. Okay. So how do you become a guest? Is there like a guest, like an expert, real estate realtor, service that you can like can sign up for somewhere? How do you get on them? How does it work?
Well, for me, it started. I wrote a book a few years ago that hit the Wall Street Journal bestseller list,
But
and I
we're
just
not here to
started.
talk about that shit.
I
We're
know,
not
I know.
going to talk about it. No.
Well,
Please tell us.
I want to getting a lot of phone calls from that, and then it just kind of adds to itself.
Yeah. So yeah, it's on the bestseller list. We've had a lot of. I just think that's awesome. It's amazing how many calls do you get from that, from people calling and asking you questions and wanting you maybe to sell the property because they say, okay, this guy obviously is an amazing realtor. I'm just going to say a couple nice things about you, if you don't mind. Because I love the fact that you don't like dual agency because there's that big conflict with representing both sides. Sometimes you have to, and I understand.
Yeah,
Sometimes it happens.
absolutely.
Same here. But in general, it's against my team policy. I don't represent both
Good.
sides. And so I love that you're that way. I love that every time we're in a meeting together, all I hear is just amazing stuff about you and your energy and your book. You're highly published. And when it comes to San Gabriel Valley, you're like, I mean, you're like the or one of the top guys. I mean, if you're even in the top five, it's huge for an area. So anyway, you're amazing. You're great. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're no direct competition with me because I think that it would make it really tough for Bell and Nell in the ring together. So yes, but it's
Bell
nice
and
to have
Nell.
you here.
Let's do that. Bell and
Yeah.
Nell. Should I move out to your neck of the woods?
I don't know. You don't want two alphas in the same team, do you?
I think it would be a lot of fun, actually. Think about it.
The
Everybody's
truth
going towards.
is,
It seems like everybody's going towards teams these days.
well, that's what I'm doing. The bottom line is that I think working with a guy like you because you're a team player, we could do really, really well together. If we ever did do something like that, we would do extremely well together because I think we're very like-minded.
I like Pasadena too much. I don't want to go to the Valley.
Why are you
Sorry.
teasing me? Why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? I'm sitting there like, I was really considering it for a second, and now you just go, no, Scott, I'm joking.
No, you got to come to me. It'll be Bell and Nell, not Nell and Bell.
I gotta, I gotta come. San Gabriel Valley. Yeah, okay, great. Would you mind taking a moment just to tell us about you, your experience, what makes you tick, and if you want to say anything more about the book too, would love to hear it. Whatever you want to highlight. I'm giving you the permission to just
Okay.
fill it out and tell us about you.
I sell a lot of homes. I'm one of the brokers over at Sotheby's International in Pasadena, and I've been selling for 25 years. I started writing a white paper on what are the things that I didn't like in the business, which um, there's a lot of statistics out there that from the National Association of Realtors that tells you what works and doesn't work. So
Hmm.
I started writing a white paper, and then I decided to write a book. And it took me a long time to write this book, but this is the book. It's
Hmm.
called Steadward Mistakes. It's on Amazon. You can go to my website and listen to it for free if you want, if you feel like
Love it.
listening to it for 4 hours. But and it's kind of changed my life a little bit. I would say I probably get about 3 to 4 phone calls a month
Hmm.
from people that read the book and they just want to pick my brain or help them find a realtor, or they just want to chat
Hmm.
or complain about what happened to them and all the mistakes that they make. So
But that's great. That is so
kind
smart.
of cool.
What you're doing is you're highlighting your expertise in this form, and then it just gets you out in front of people at the same time. It's like it's like the law of attraction. That was really, really smart that you did that.
I mean, actually, all I'm really doing is just highlighting the statistics from the National Association of Realtors.
Hmm.
And some of the statistics, I mean, they're just kind of shocking. I mean,
Hmm.
one, I don't think you and I haven't talked about this, but for example, open houses. Did you know that 49% of all agents arm themselves at an open house with either a gun, a knife, a taser, or or pepper spray? 49%. There you
Really?
go. It's
Why
got the
would
Boy
that?
Scout logo on it.
Really
Yep.
interesting.
So why do they do that?
Tell me.
Well, why do they do open houses?
Oh, I
And
thought
then,
you were saying,
but it's leads.
why did they arm themselves?
Well, they arm themselves because they're dangerous. I mean, nobody really likes to talk about it. I mean, one of the
Interesting.
things I found through my research that it, they, the National Association of Realtors came out with Realtor Safety Day. This was
Hmm.
like 20 years ago. It
Uh-huh.
quickly morphed into Realtor Safety Week. And now the entire month of September is Realtor Safety Month. And you know, just as well as I do, we get emails all the time in September about all the safety things that we need to do because we have, unfortunately, a very dangerous job.
It's so funny because not funny, but that's interesting because I don't think about it much, but now if I think about it, there's there's opens recently that I didn't have certain people go to because I didn't feel
Yeah.
comfortable for them. And to certain people, it depends. I mean, that I'll say, you know what, it'd be better if maybe if you do this, why don't you do it with a partner? Why don't you do it with someone? You guys can figure out how to work it together because there's a comfort level that I would prefer. So yeah, wow,
I
interesting.
I have I
Do me a
actually
favor, show your book one more time. What's your favorite what's your what are the your let's say if you were to highlight the favorite things that you would want to communicate to somebody or share with somebody who is selling, what are the ones you choose out of those?
so the biggest lesson that I like to promote is really the first lesson, and it's the first mistake that people make is they don't interview more than one agent. 75% of all sellers interview one agent, only 10% of them interview more than one, and
Really?
75% of all home sellers don't use their previous realtor again. There's a
Mm.
lot of reasons for that. So you should interview 3 agents at least that are local and very experienced. And unfortunately, oftentimes you don't want to interview a friend or a family member. I have a whole chapter about hiring friends and family members. There's a lot of reasons. My toughest sales have been with my mom, my dad, my brothers, my cousins. I'm selling my uncle's house right now. It's stressful, and
Hmm.
thank God everything's going really well. Have you ever had deals where it's like, oh my God, pray to God that it goes smoothly, and
Yes.
because if it doesn't, you're going to hear it from everybody in the family. And
Absolutely.
so we close escrow in a few weeks, thank God.
That's great. My brother doesn't live locally and he was calling me and saying asking me questions and telling me what his current realtor was doing. And he goes, I don't think in this and this and this. And I said, oh my God, you're such a pain in the ass. He's doing exactly what he should be doing, and you're not taking his advice. And he, what? And I have to talk him through it, make him realize because he's being so difficult. I'm thinking, gosh, if he was with me, would he be doing that? Probably. And I love my brother.
Yeah, I know. I hear you. I don't think in our lifetime we're going to see the day where artificial intelligence takes over what we're doing,
No.
or they're able to get a salaried employee to do what we're doing. It's
Hmm.
just, I mean, you have a fantastic idea for your podcast to say, stories from hell, or what is it again?
Real
Tell me the,
estate hell with Scott Nell.
okay. You asked me to come up with some idea, some stories of hell, and
Yes.
actually a lot out there. I've been selling like you have. I've been selling for like 25 years. You've sold more homes than I have. I've probably sold 600 homes, but there's some crazy stuff that happens out there.
Absolutely. Well, why don't you start with one of the ones that is going to make me cringe? No, actually, whatever you want. Go in your own order. What would you like to share?
So the craziest one I ever had was about 8 years ago. I get a
Hmm.
phone call from a divorce attorney, and he says, of course, it's a divorce sale. It's a husband and wife, and they're in La Crescenta, and they hate each other. The
Hmm.
attorneys hate each other. Everybody hates each other.
Hmm.
So I go down there and I chit chat with. The husband's living there, and I talk to the wife on the phone, and they decide they want two realtors. They want a female realtor representing from another brokerage representing. So I had to split the listing, the
Hmm.
wife, and I
So
was
it's a
going to
bullet.
represent the husband.
Hmm.
And let me tell you, they hated each other. They just said they hated each other. And we wound up putting it into escrow. I worked really well with the other agent. She was at a different brokerage. And 2 days before we're supposed to close, I get a phone call from the buyer's agent. He says, we can't close. My client got murdered.
Oh my
So what wound
gosh.
up happening on this situation is this the lady that was buying it, she was buying it. She had a son that they were moving out to the West Coast, and they wanted to be closer to one of her other sons that lived down the street. That other son didn't want to do that move.
Mm-hmm.
So it was horrible.
Oh, that's awful.
What was really awful too
Mm-hmm.
is my sellers didn't want to give them their deposit back. And you probably know this already, but if a principal in
Wow.
California dies,
Mm-hmm.
they can't perform. It's not that they won't perform, they can't perform. And because they can't perform, the contract is null and void. And you have to give the good faith deposits back to the buyer.
Mm-hmm.
And we had to start over.
Wow.
That was
Okay,
pure hell.
that's is. I had an attorney on, and he was talking. There was another person that talked about what was it? Oh gosh, about someone getting murdered, and they were stabbed 21 times, and it was. He said at the end of it was considered self-defense, and I said, self-defense? How could it be self-defense? Because you think that after the first 3 or 4 stabs, then it's no longer self-defense. But he got all the way to 21, but somehow a case was made, and it has nothing to do with what you just said, except there was a murder. Do you ever watch Only Murders in the Building?
No, I haven't seen that one yet.
It is so much fun. It's Martin Short and Steve Martin. It's a kick
I
in the.
saw, yeah, I saw the first 2 episodes.
It's fun. It's goofy as hell, but I'm a big fan for those goofy guys.
So, have you ever had anybody break into one of your listings and live there, move in?
Oh, it's like a
Squatters?
squatter? No, I haven't. I've had them broke. I had one broken into recently, but fortunately nothing happened. But no squatting. Tell us about it.
So, I had a very dear friend. She moved to Oklahoma, and she's still married to a linesman. A linesman, guys that does the power lines. These guys
Mhm.
are big, buff, burly. It's almost like their own fraternity. You don't mess with these guys. They all drive
Right.
trucks. They eat big burritos for breakfast. They're manly men.
Hmm.
Anyways,
Like me.
so she had that head. So she moved out of the house, and we were about 5 or 6 days before the close of escrow. And I get a phone call. The house was vacant. I get a phone call from from one of the neighbors saying, I, I I don't think you guys closed yet. I didn't, but people had moved in with a bunch of dogs. And I'm
Oh
thinking,
my gosh.
what? So I get in my car, I drive over to the house, knock on the door, and they're not supposed to be there. We didn't close. And I put my phone in my pocket and I
Hmm.
record. And the folks that opened the door was this lady with tattoos all over her, and her
Hmm.
husband had tattoos on his eyelids. Um, Not the kind of people you want to be hanging out with.
Right.
They had a whole bunch of pit bulls, um, and they said that they had an agreement with the owner. They have a lease. They paid cash, and they moved in. I found out later that they got over. They what they did was they were trolling Zillow looking for
Hmm.
vacant houses. They went over to the house. They grabbed the lockbox, and the neighbors said they heard a whole bunch of bashing. They
Hmm.
broke it open. Obviously, went into the house. They
Hmm.
put the utilities in their name really quickly. Before they did all of this, they actually went online somehow and they were able to find the signature from my client because documents and stuff like that are kind of like
No.
they're not public,
Uh-huh.
but the public could get to.
Hmm.
And they forged her signature and they had a cash receipt saying that they paid cash. So the reason why I'm saying this is it went from a criminal trespass very quickly to a civil matter. And the
Hmm.
first thing I did was I told them, you can't be here. I'm the broker. This is one of my best friends. This is her house.
Right.
You're not supposed to be here. I called the police. The police showed up. They showed the police the lease and the receipt. And they said it's a civil matter. I'm sorry, we can't do anything about
That's awful. Wow.
it. So her husband's friends are all down here, and they're
Hmm.
all pretty buff guys with trucks and stuff like that. Well,
Like where this is going.
they called their friends, and their friends all showed up. And
Hmm.
it was kind of crazy because um, I'm pretty sure they had concealed carry weapons with them. They
Hmm.
had knives. These are kind of guys that you just don't mess with.
Right.
And I really thought that they were going to go into that house and beat the hell out of these people and kick them out of the house. In a way, it's kind of good and kind of bad too that the cops were there. But what wound up happening is we had the Alhambra Police Department sent a detective, and they
Hmm.
got a search warrant on the house. They went through the house and pulled out a whole bunch of laptops, and they found two check cashing machines, and they found a bag
Right.
full of credit cards and passports. So these
Hmm.
folks were nefarious. And we wound up actually having to go to court to evict them. And their claim was that they couldn't defend themselves because the police took all of their stuff and it was totally legitimate. My client had to fly out from Oklahoma to go to
Hmm.
court and tell the judge, this is all BS. And we wound up getting them out. I was kind of surprised. I thought they were going to trash the house. They
Hmm.
left. There was nothing broken. I mean, these people, squatters are crazy. When they leave, they pour cement down drains. They put holes
Hmm.
in walls. We got really lucky with these folks. It was a 2-month fiasco, pure hell. Um,
So what
so
happens though? I mean, so they move out, but do they get arrested? Did something go on their record? What happens?
they had a long, long record.
Hmm.
Um, to take the next step and prosecute them, it was something that she just wanted to sell her house and move to Oklahoma.
Hmm.
She just let it go. She had already spent $15,000-$20,000 on legal fees and
Hmm.
all the headaches. She just wanted to move on. So it's
I
tough.
can understand that.
Yeah.
Plus, it's going to
Sure.
cost. It could cost 100,000 plus just to get into that.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Well, you're
Um,
just a bear of all sorts of great news so far.
those are the worst two things. I was actually thinking about last night. I was thinking about haunted houses. I was thinking about
Hmm.
any other crazy stuff. I've been pretty fortunate. Nothing super crazy. I mean, there's the average challenge that every house has, and it's funny. One of the stats in my book, it talks about how over time, over the last 15 years, when they've been doing surveys on asking people how important is it to have a real estate agent. And
Hmm.
you would think with like people would be like, oh, I don't really need them because we have AI now, but we have all these other things that we can leverage. People want a realtor more and more and more every year.
Hmm.
20 years ago, 70% of all respondents said we value what a realtor brings to the
Hmm.
table. It's at 91% right now.
Wow. Wow. That's a
Yeah,
great stat.
I think it's kind of amazing. Yeah.
When are you going to do SM2?
SM2, what's that?
Seller Mistakes too.
So the book came out 2.5 years ago. All the stats are from 2021, so I'll do a revised probably and
Uh-huh.
relaunch that in a few years. But
Nice.
what's crazy is so I really don't need to do it, but the consumer is going to want it. But the stats really haven't changed.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this is still a very basic business.
It'll be a
And
real thin book. It'll say everything is the same except for these 2 pages.
I think what's going to change though, so the landscape in real estate's really changed over the last just in the last 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to know what you thought about this, but in terms of there's so much paperwork involved now. There's so much more regulation
Right.
involved. And there's a new law coming into effect in California next year for buyer broker agreements, and it's just a 3-month term. That's the max. But I am seeing, older or less experienced and very young agents getting out of the business, which is, you know, the average age of a realtor in California is like in the mid to late 50s. 10 years ago it was in the mid 40s.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I, I I feel for the industry. I mean, you and I are going to do fine, and we're very very established, and that's what they're saying is the established people are going to do actually much better. But I feel
Yeah,
bad for the younger people that want to get into this business because hey, we need young people in this business.
definitely. And then, I mean, I've got 3 younger people on the team because without the experience and the chops that I have, they're not feeling comfortable. So they're coming to me with deals when people oftentimes would take them on themselves. They're coming up, will you partner with me? I said, of course. And we come in and we just split it, and they get all that experience while they make money, and the deals close. And so, but I think one of the best things you can do if you're younger is to get on a great team.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely important, and I think we're going to see teams expanding, and there's just going to be more teams. 15 years ago, nobody really had teams,
Hmm.
and now it's getting more towards the norm. And I think it's because it's just so complicated. Our business is just so complicated. I mean, I was on a call yesterday. The California Association of Realtors just released 17 new forms. I think it's today. I don't know if you heard of it.
No,
It's
didn't.
17 new forms. My God, when I got into the industry, there was less than 100. There's 400 forms now for everything, and you would think it would make our lives easier, but the attorneys got involved, and most of
Mhm.
these forms, the average form is like what, 3 pages long?
Right.
That sound like a lot, but it's kind of crazy.
Yeah. No, definitely. Definitely. So, do you have any other health stories before you say something wonderful about me?
Hellst no, not really.
Do you, do you have a charity or a cause, something that's close to your heart that you would like to share with us, that we can kind of shine a spotlight on?
I started something a few years ago. It's called Sell a Home, Save a Child, and it's on my website. And for every transaction that I close, I send a decent portion to this nonprofit, and they're out there building homes and doing educational stuff for folks outside of the United States. It's a fantastic cause. You can go to my website if you want, michaelbbell.com, if you want to.
Hmm.
Um, if you let me sell your house, I will give a portion of my proceeds to that. I do that every month.
That's great. I
And I
didn't
know
know. I had no
you
idea.
do something amazing.
Wow, you're a lot sweeter than I thought you were.
Well, you're doing a lot. I mean, I have to say, of realtors are generally pretty generous. You're incredibly generous. I have to say,
Oh, thank you.
kudos to you for what you're doing. It's not just the basics that you're doing. You actually are traveling. You're very proactive, more so than me, and I appreciate what you do. Tell me again what you're doing. Is it? I
Tell you
don't think
again?
it's right. You're doing phones and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's Mercy Childcare from Uganda, Africa, and we're collecting phones and electronics, even laptops and desktops, and they get taken over to Africa, and they'll either be sold and then go to support kids' education, medical, all that. So when I was over there, I saw literally kids in the hospital that just the care they needed only cost a few dollars and they didn't have it. And they would sell a phone and then they would pay for it. And I'd see this kid in 3 or 4 days over at the children's home. And I was going like, really? How is this even happening? And I just saw how they used it, and I believed in the people, and I say so. Anything that I raise, I give to them, and I say I'm trusting you. You know, you're to do this, to do with this what you believe is best, because I'm not there with you, and they do that, and it amounts to probably $30,000, $50,000 a year because they sell it. And now they're taking the desktops and they're helping, train people on different jobs and stuff because, obviously the internet and that communication really puts you in touch with the rest of the world. So that's what they're doing. So I've been doing that for 13, 14 years.
Jeez. Oh,
Yeah, I
thank you
love
for
it. No, my pleasure. That's very nice of you. And so you and I, we're probably going to, you referred me a couple of deals recently, so thank you for that.
yeah.
And yeah, it's interesting because I see the way that you work, and you really do care about people. I was joking about you, like oh, I didn't know you're so sweet. Obviously, I do know that because when you make an introduction, it's like a real sincere introduction, so that I can know who we're talking about and what their needs are. And you're really coming in there saying, look, this isn't just a deal. This is more than that. That's just one of the things I really.
Thank you. And I feel really good about referring stuff to you. I mean, we're what, 20 miles away from each other, but 20 miles is just too far for me, and it's probably too far for you too.
Right. I wouldn't. I would always. I'd rather hand it off to you for sure over there.
Yeah, it's just a lot. It's and in this business, I think we all agree. It's just, I mean, there's so many people that come and go in this business. You have to be really careful. Um, but to have a partner like you that I can refer to, and I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to call the client or hope that you didn't say something stupid or something unethical. Or part of the reason why you want to use a really successful realtor is because they can afford stuff. They can afford professional photos and layouts and the marketing, and they have the staff to help you with stuff. And they're not going to drop the ball and they know what they're doing, and they keep doing it over and over again. Some people think, oh, I'll just use somebody who's, only does 2 deals a year. It's a big problem. It's a big
I
problem. They don't have the resources. I hate to say it. I get it. They need to start somewhere. They need a leg up, but hey, this is your house. And if you hire the wrong realtor in this marketplace, like in Pasadena, the average sales price is like $1.5 million. I'm telling you, you could lose a few $100,000. And what's really unfortunate is you never even know it. But the realtors know it because you and I see stuff on the MLS and we see stuff that's sold, and you're like, oh my God, um, we can't say anything, right? What am I going to do? Call the old seller and I'm going to get sued. But
right.
we all know because we know the product, we know what's going on. You and I do a lot of inventory. You know, we tend to
A
know
lot
stuff.
a lot of people are also trying to are thinking it's better to sell something off market. And to me, it's like it's rare that the off market is going to be better than going to market because you got that big pool. And so when someone, I mean, gosh, there's actually someone, one of the people that you referred to me, who just a lovely family, they were talking about maybe we could do it this way or this way or this way. And I said, look, let's just talk through this. The most difficult way to do it is the way I'm asking, which means we're going to roll up our sleeves. We're going to meet the team. There's going to be a project manager. We're going to meet. We're going to have a trades day, and then we're going to decide how much money you're going to spend on this property to get you to the best net. And then I let them know I'm not going to advise you to do anything that you're not going to get at least double back. Realistically, it's going to be 3 or 4 times what you invest in it, but it's a pain in the butt, and it costs me time, me money, me resources. I'm still advising you to do it because I can get an off-market sale done in 2 days for you. Done. So much easier for me. But I don't think that's what's best for you. So tell me why you want to do an off-market, and then you got to hear it. And then at some point, it might make sense. 9 times out of 10, go to market.
Well, I always tell my clients pocket price is almost always less than market price.
Right.
And people go, what's pocket price? In the old days, people would take a listing and they would stick it in their pocket, and you would think, oh wow, they're out there hustling, but all they're doing is telling their friends. They're not telling the entire marketplace.
Oh, see, yeah.
And I tell my clients at the same time, I can't get you over market price because there's no such thing as over market price.
Mm-hmm.
But if you want to make the most amount of money, I'll get you market price, and this is how we're going to do it.
Right.
But generally, you want to stay away from pocket stuff. I mean, there's a new rule that came into effect during the pandemic called the Clear Cooperation Policy.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure your listeners have probably have noticed that
Mm-hmm.
there's not a lot of coming soons in pocket listings
Right.
because they're effectively illegal now because they've realized they need to step in and say, hey, if you want market price, you need to put it on the open market rather than doing these side deals. And,
Right.
you know, we talked about this before, but there's always exceptions to the rule.
Exactly.
Sometimes, and it also on the flip side of that, there's people that don't like this new clear cooperation policy because
Mm-hmm.
in a way, the seller wants it's really the seller's choice what they want to do. And some
Right.
sellers they don't want a sign out there. They don't want it on the MLS, and they want you to bring your own buyers, and they don't want the neighborhood to know for a number of reasons. But
Yeah, but it's going to cost them so much money, and ultimately they're going to know anyway. I
yeah,
did one recently and it was with someone from our group. Great guy. He was actually the one making all the decisions, but he was not a beneficiary. So it was really interesting. So he came to me and he said, he wants to do this, this. And I said, well, I think as is, we just clean it up. It's worth probably, 1.3. However, if let's say we do a little more, just a little bit of landscaping, and then we fix, this, and this. If we just do that, it's probably going to cost an extra $15,000 to $20,000. We'll stage it. I think we can get between $1.4 million and $1.5 million. Probably really $1.4 million to $1.45 million is realistic because they don't want to do it. I said, okay, just so you know, if you don't do this, you're going to be leaving money on the table. I'm confident of it. Well, can you promise that? I said, no, I can't promise that because you never know what happens in inspections. Went over it and over and over, and at the end of it, and he says, Scott, trust me. If it was my decision, like to do it, I would do this all day long because this is what we specialize in, right? We put love into the property and we get a higher net. And so he ends up, they sell it off market. They get a decent price. The reason they didn't want to, I come to find out, was because there's all sorts of issues with it. And what if there was mold and there's some, there was like a areas in the back of the hardscape that were leaning towards the house. So they're thinking there's all these issues. Turns out they get in there, two chimneys need to come down. There's mold. Turns out they were right in their decision. And I was going like, oh my gosh. It was one of the few times where I thought, man, maybe this off market was the right call. And I totally advised again. I think we would have still made a few more bucks, but at the same time, I didn't expect that there's going to be 50, 75, $100,000 worth of work to the property, because we would have gotten an escrow and then we would have worked on those numbers. So
Isn't it nuts? Like some houses you see and you're like, oh, there's going to be so many problems with that house, and the
mhm.
inspection reports come out clean, and other homes they look beautiful, but it looks like after looking at it, you realize it's put together with
Mm-hmm.
glue and tape, and they're
Yep.
the worst homes. Some of them are just horrible. Some of them, and a lot of times they're flipped houses.
Right. Right. They're just putting that layer over the top of it. I see that. Yeah, I see that
Be
happen all the
wary,
time.
be
What's
wary
that?
of be wary of flipped houses. I always tell
Mm-hmm.
my clients there's
Right.
a lot of stuff that's usually hidden, and unfortunately, most of them don't have a great reputation.
Right. Right. Very good. Well, it was great talking to you.